What is going on? Alex Schlinsky here for the Get More Client Show, episode number 9. As always, joined with my co-host Brian Downard. Brian, how you doing, my man?
I'm feeling great, brother. I'm excited for today's episode. This is kind of more conversational. Got some good insights for everyone today, and how you can start bringing some leads to you. So let's get into it, brother.
It's gonna be
Brother,
great.
I'm saying brother a lot today. I don't know why I'm like channeling my inner Hulk Hogan.
Give me the Hulk Hogan. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Brother, all right, we're gonna do the episode number 9, and if you can find us on. I tried to give you the accent, but I can't do it very well. So if you are watching us, that means you are on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, please do us a brief favor and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, hit that like, comment. Even if it's a negative comment, it helps us. So we're cool with it either way. So don't mind if you do. Also, make sure you're following our clip show on YouTube as well, which you can find at the end of this video and also in the description below, where we just share kind of the clips of the best parts of this show from the past 9 episodes and the episodes that we have planned ahead. Today, in episode number 9, we're going to be talking about our 10 most impactful, powerful, valuable, and profitable posts that we've done online. This is the Get More Client Show, so we want to talk about how to get more clients utilizing content. Obviously, we know content can be really challenging. We spent some other episodes talking about how to capture and utilize effective content. Today, we want to talk about the 10 most valuable pieces of content that we've shared. We've kind of batched them out. Brian and I don't actually know what we've shared with each other, so we can get kind of natural reactions and a back and forth here that we think is going to be really valuable. What we're going to do in this episode today is we're going to talk about one piece of content and see if the other co-host has any content similar to that or wants to touch on it, and then we'll go from there, kind of going back and forth. Again, you can find us on all of your favorite podcast apps like Apple and Spotify and all that jazz. If you're there, hit the like button, give us a quick review. We'd really appreciate it. And let's dive into this. Let's get to it. Brian, why don't you share the first valuable piece of content that you've got here today?
All right, so I've got a lot of good stuff. I'm going to save probably some of the best ones for last, so got to definitely stay around with that. I think one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, I'm seed planting right now. I got to stick around for that. So I think one of my favorites, and again, we're not going to show this here for the sake of not screen sharing. We're just going to get us here on camera, and we will talk about this. Probably going to put the links in the description below at the end. So
yeah, we will.
Okay, perfect. We'll go scroll down. You can check those out, like them, bring those posts back to life for us. One of my favorites is, and again, I don't want you just to focus on the specific post, but the context and frame of the post. This was a demonstration. So at POD Live, Alex and I did some warm calls from stage, and we were able to actually book appointments back to back together. It was pretty cool. He booked one, and then I booked one. Or it might have been the other way around. It's okay. Either way, we had that recording, and I wanted to demonstrate to people, like, look, like there's not much at stake here. If you're doing this by yourself and there's no one to be embarrassed in front of, I'm in a room full of 130 people, and I was still able to do this and hold it together. So the post basically was just expressing like, hey, here's one of the most nerve-wracking moments of my life, captured on tape. I was on stage. Here's like a little bit of a summary of the story. And it was basically just a kind of a lead-in to what actually happens. Like, so watch the video to see what happens next. Because I was telling you, this is one of the scariest moments of my life, but here's what I was able to do. So I think the pattern interrupt and the intrigue of, oh, wow, what was this really scary moment? And then seeing actually something in practice, not just me telling them to do it, but showing them how to do it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is in your content, I want you to focus on demonstrating, not necessarily just speaking at people. It's like show, don't tell. It's, if you can think about it like that. So that's one of my favorite posts, and one with the most engagement. Again, that's what we're talking about here today. That got, I mean, if we're just doing a record for, or we're keeping track, 60 engagements, 20 plus comments, and 4 shares. Typically when something's got more shares, that's a really good indicator. Like an interesting side note too is Facebook and Instagram, they love saves and shares even more than comments and likes. So if your content's getting a lot of shares, you're onto something.
Yeah,
so I don't know, Alex, do you have any
on
content specifically around demonstrating, or go ahead?
Yeah, I think there's something really valuable similar to that. It's not one of the 5 that I mentioned, but I will just bring it up. because it had to do with both of us. Last year in February, we were at St. John's, St. Thomas, right before coronavirus happened in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Brian and I tried to take one step further of our normal model. We do this thing called the Wing Hotline, which we're not really going to talk about today, but it is one of our favorite pieces of content where we, eat hot wings or try to book live sales appointments for our clients or leads and kind of do like unique demonstration posts. But we wanted to step it up because we were on vacation. So we did, I think, an hour-long session, which ironically, by the way, got pulled by Facebook and then ended up being put back on, if you remember that, Brian. We did a cold call shot line for the first time. So we bought Sex on the Beach shots, I believe, Brian. Does the record state they were Sex on the Beach shots?
Something like that. Yeah, something.
I do recall also Cinnamon Toast Crunch shots being involved. I do remember this. I'm not a big alcohol drinker. I like beer. That's kind of my drink of choice. But we were doing calls from the U.S. Virgin Islands live on Facebook on Brian's little rig on his phone with not so great internet. And I remember that post just absolutely exploding and how excited Brian and I were because one, we were getting drunk on Facebook Live and being stupid. Two, we were actually booking sales appointments while we were on vacation. And three, our audacity, right? Kind of just like, hope you don't mind this, but like balls on the table type thing. Where it's not like we're just eating hot wings, but we're like drinking alcohol, being stupid on warm calls, booking up sales appointments for clients and leads. We were like, this is going to be a huge one. I don't have the stats on hand, but I know it was a really big post for us. And I remember it was so big because I remember us coming back later that day after we had wind down from our, traveling and relaxation. We realized that Facebook had pulled the post and we didn't know why. Was it like something to do with alcohol? It ended up being because we were at Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, and there was music playing and Facebook blocked that video. But they let us continue it. It was the first 30 seconds of the video. But I remember that being so impactful and valuable. And I think that's a really good demonstration post to bring up as well. Let's talk about the next type of post and my first post that I think is really valuable and has made a huge difference in my business and has really allowed us to grow in such a powerful way. And it's a big stark change from what we were just talking about to get kind of serious for a second, but I think there's a lot of value to it. My two biggest posts by far and away, and I'm not going to bury the lead or anything. I'm just going to get into it right away. The two biggest posts I did was obviously my post-surgery post. So if you are watching this or listening to this for the first time, I'm about 21 weeks post-open heart surgery. Yeah, I know it's crazy. I'm only 29 years old and I had open heart surgery already. It's pretty nuts, absolutely wild. The open heart surgery post that I made was made for the purpose of expressing you can kind of get through anything model. That was the intention behind it. This personal story of you can achieve anything and have better perspective and be more grateful about things that we do. Because I think a lot of times in our business, we're so overwhelmed and overemphasizing small little obstacles, me included. Many of you, I'm sure, deal with this, where it's this one deal or opportunity that didn't work, or the Clickfunnels problem that happened, or the GHL Zapier integration that didn't work, and it's ruining your whole day. And then a doctor tells you have to have heart surgery, and you're like, oh yeah, none of that shit matters. And then when you get through it, and you live through it, it's very, very, a traumatic experience, but also a very valuable and important experience. And going through that and then posting it and sharing it was crazy. I did two posts on this. 4 days after the surgery, or 3 days after the surgery, pretty high on oxycodone, I would say, being frank. I did a live, and I watched that live recently, and I realized, wow, it's so crazy how far I've already come. I could barely say a sentence without having to breathe really deep because my lung capacity was very, very low. And that was really challenging to listen back to it. But that was an explosion of a post. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's so good to see you, blah, blah, you sound good. Or although they were lying, because I definitely didn't sound good and I definitely looked like death. But that was my biggest post. My second biggest post, and the post that was biggest for me, same style of post, personal story, that was the biggest for me for the last 3 years before my heart surgery, was the story about my dad. And if a lot of you don't know about this, this used to be my dad's story until one of my mentors had told me that this was my story and for me to own it. And I thought it was really valuable. 14 years ago, actually last week, Brian, my dad had a stroke when I was a freshman in high school. And my dad was an owner of his own business. He ran a financial planning company, and he still does today. But at that time, it was just him. He had no one else to help him. And he had a pretty nice sized business and a lot of clients that really adored him and loved him. But he didn't work for 18 months. And because of that, a lot of his clients had to leave to go get financial planning and advice elsewhere. And, we lost everything. We lost the house I was born in, and we lost all these things. The most important thing, though, is we didn't lose my dad. And I wrote this really long story about it a weekend after him and I went to the Miami Dolphins Oakland Raiders game. And again, if you don't know us, we're huge Dolphins fans, and we kicked the Raiders' ass that day, which was great. Reggie Bush had 3 touchdowns. I was repping his jersey that day. Really an amazing day. That was the first Dolphins game my dad and I had been to in almost a decade, because going upstairs and everything would be really challenging for him since the stroke and a car accident and all this stuff that happened. But the reason I share this now on this podcast or on this live is because the story that I shared, it ended up being the purpose of why I created the business in the first place. The reason that I mentor and coach people is for the intention of it can't be a business if you're just running it, right? So one of my most controversial posts was, you're not a business owner if you're a freelancer. And I had a million comments how could you say that? Oh my God. And people were so offended by this. But I followed up with the story that I posted on Facebook about how my dad's experience made me want to coach people and learn from that, and how grateful I am to have him alive and have perspective. And here we are 14 years later, and I have my first son, and he was holding him last week. And that was the 2 most impactful, valuable, and important posts that I've ever had. I don't know, Brian, if you've had a personal post that really worked well for you and impacted your audience. I'd love to hear about it. Before that, I know some of you want to kind of know the stats, and I happen to have that post up, so I'll share it right now. That post had 183 likes and 124 comments. That was done in 2018. It's pretty crazy how far we've come since then. But yeah, that's probably my most impactful post.
Man, that's hard to follow. Not a heart attack, but open heart surgery, and then that story about your dad. I can't follow that, but I do know, and I think just to I'll share mine in a second. But I think Alex is more willing than most, if I'm being honest, to share the lows and the difficulties he's gone through in his life. And I think when you do that, it definitely attracts people too, and there's humanity behind that content. But I know for some people like myself personally, I know others watching who probably don't create content, that's probably very difficult and not an easy thing to do. And I don't know if it's definitely not a requirement, but is one of the things, again, that humanizes what you do and makes people essentially like you, right? There's that know, like, and trust factor you need to have with people to work together. And when they feel like they know you and they trust you and they like you, and when you have content like that, it humanizes that piece. So for me, was actually just a picture of my wedding and saying I got to marry my best friend, and 300 comments, I think 150 comments, 300 likes, etc. So just a nice post about my wedding, and I think that it's funny because I don't want you to have open heart surgery or get married or have a baby or anything like that just for content. Of course, that's ridiculous. But I think the point is to not be so consumed and worried about needing to post business stuff all the time, 24/7. Be willing to share more personal stuff. Interestingly enough, we had a coach come in who does PR, so much better versed than we are around how to get yourself noticed and publicized, all that good stuff. And she was talking about this 80-20 rule of actually 80% of the posts should be personal. I thought that was really interesting to me because for me it would be flipped. It'd be 80% business, 20% personal. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but the point is to have a mix of both because the clients who want to have that likability, not just the business side. So personal posts, A+, definitely a second category you should be considering.
Love that. I think that's great. Let's talk about the next one.
Hop on to the next category?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me make sure I have my notes clear here. All right. So the next one for me would be proof. Now, this is sort of like a subtle flex, and it's tough. I don't want you again, everyone's got their own style. I don't love the Tai Lopez, showing off cars and houses and stuff. Maybe sub-contextually through your stories, but not outright. That's just my style person. Again, everyone's got their own style. But I bring this up because one of our biggest successes back in 2020, and this was just in September, so only like a few months ago now, was to win the ClickFunnels 2 Comma Award. I wish we could have been there to unbox that together, but I have a great screenshot of Alex pulling it out of the box, making a hilarious face, and myself there laughing about it. We tagged the team in all of it, and just basically saying, just unbox our 2 Comma Club Award. Massive shout out to our awesome team. I'm grateful to be a part of this community. And the engagement wasn't through the roof, 50 likes, 20-ish comments. But Alex and I were talking about this before the show, and a lot of times the positioning of your content is more valuable than the content itself. And I want a lot of you who are at the beginning stages of like, oh no, people aren't liking and engaging with my content. What happens is as you attract more people down the road, they become a fan because they go through everything and consume it all. There's a lot of good ways and strategies to get a lot of use out of your past content, like when you're doing lead gen online, tagging people in it, and it'll breathe new life into it. Not going to get into all those things today, but the takeaway here would be to share the wins on your journey, especially the ones that give you positioning to your target audience. For whatever reason, just because ClickFunnels, they got cult style marketing and they're great at what they do, the 2 Comma Club ClickFunnels Award is like a big deal in our community. So talking about that, even the people who don't like it, comment on it, engage it, etc., they see that and they see that, hey, I want to follow in these guys' footsteps because they're obviously achieving the things that I want to achieve. And Alex, frankly, I don't know why you don't have that hanging up behind you on the wall, but that's just me.
It's on my wall up in front of me, actually.
Yeah,
it's ironic that
you got to be that person. You got to have your ClickFunnels Award up because then what you say is important.
It's so funny that you said this because, like I said, we didn't plan which post we were going to do so that it can be more natural. This was the next one I had. So on September 21st, 2020, I took a picture of the 2 Comma Club award, just the award, and I wrote, well, this is cool, with a champion emoji. And that actually had 375 likes and 288 comments. So it went off, went absolutely crazy. And that is definitely a subtle flex post. I don't think in any way we can claim that there was any other purpose other than we're good at what we do, you should work with us because of it. So I want to make that clear. Like, I'm not bullshitting on that. That's what it was for. Yeah, it was cool and exciting also, but like, I wouldn't have ever applied. You have to pay to get the award. I would have never applied for it if I didn't believe that it would help the business, because I don't really care about the award inherently. And I don't mean to be rude or anything to anyone at ClickFunnels. It's not supposed to be offending anyone. That was the purpose that we did the post with, and we did it on stories, and we sent emails about it. It's a proof model, right? It's the same idea as me having the verification on Facebook. I don't give a shit about having the verification on Facebook. You, audience member, gives a shit. He's like, oh, Alex must be something by having the verification. No, it just means I paid money for it. Let's be blunt on it, because that's what happened. Same idea as the ClickFunnels thing. Yeah, we did make over $1 million using ClickFunnels, but like, in an ancillary way. I mean, come on, right? It's not like I made $1 million because I ran a $1,000 funnel on ClickFunnels. No, like if that was the case, I made less than 20 grand on ClickFunnels over 10 years, 5 years using it. We made millions of dollars with it because we did a webinar funnel, but like it wasn't ClickFunnels that was special. We could have done it on WordPress or like Dubsado or anything.
They did do a good job of having that award, right? And I think that's actually a quick pivot to something I wasn't going to bring up, but a little bonus here for you is having your own awards or milestones that you celebrate and post publicly about your clients. Whenever we have someone enter the Hall of Fame in our program, which is when they get $10,000 recurring revenue added to whatever they're doing, we induct them into the Hall of Fame, and they get a T-shirt, and they get an award, and we publicize that so other people see it. Wow, that their clients are winning. I want you to do the same thing. Again, back to the demonstration post, you can take screenshots of campaigns you're running, results you're creating, show them the results. Don't just talk about the results, and that's a lot more powerful.
I love that. Yeah. I will say from that post, the ClickFunnels 2 Comma Club, I do recall very specifically multiple people DMing me and saying, how'd you get it? Or I'd love to know what you've done to get it. I don't know necessarily if it created sales opportunities, more so like consulting opportunities, people wanting to know how we got it. And then kind of pulling the curtain back, people got a little sad where it was like, well, to clarify, and basically what I just said of like, I paid to get the award and $200 to apply. And they don't deny anyone. I mean, you can straight up.
You got to prove you made $1 million, but
yeah, I mean, but if you've made $1 million ever and then have a ClickFunnels account you're going to get the award. That's just the truth. I hope I'm not making anyone sad here, but that is just the reality. One of the other names of the show could have been Pulling the Curtain Back on Reality. And I think that's a really good segue into the next post. Brian, can I move on?
Let's go.
Cool. So the next post was this idea of the flex posts, right? So Brian brought up the 2 Comma Club. The other 2 that I've done, one was the entrepreneur article that I did. I got featured in Entrepreneur for the story about my dad. Again, pulling the veil back, I paid for that. It's not like Entrepreneur came to me or I went to their editor. I paid a company called the Oracles to give them, money to give me an opportunity to be posted on there. And it was definitely worth it in the beginning. Ended up not going great with them long term, but no worries. If anyone wants to reach out to me or talk to me about that, I'm happy to answer. The other ones that I got, though, I got featured in Inc. and Forbes as well, which is great to have for long term kind of positioning. But the Forbes feature I had was with Damon John and Russell, not Russell, sorry. Wow, it's escaping me. I have it up here, so I'll share it. I was going to say Russell Brunson, and I got confused because we were talking about Clickfunnels. I meant to say Richard Branson, excuse me. Russell Brunson, Richard Branson's pretty close, so I'll go with it. So yeah, Shaq, Damon John, and Richard Branson was in this article talking about like tips for successful partnerships, and they got me in that article with quotes from Shaq, Damon John, and Richard Branson. So that post exploded, 120 likes, 93 comments, 4 shares as well. There was a couple other people in the oracles that were on there too, but it was so cool to just like even send to my parents. Like I understand that Shaq has no idea who I am, and it wasn't Shaq's intention to be in this article with these other people or Richard Branson, but even having it, just like, look, I was featured in a Forbes article that has these other people in it, name dropped in the same article. It's pretty cool, it's a pretty interesting thing. So that was a really valuable post, and I do remember that post actually delivering us revenue because some people came to us and said, I read your post on partnerships, I really need help. Because my partnership anecdote in there, Brian, was talking about how I work with my wife, Shira, and how we've kind of like set appropriate guidelines and boundaries. And people were like, oh, I work with my wife also, and we don't know how to work together. Can you help me? And that became a couple clients. I remember a couple actually, specifically Morgan and Tyler, Brian was one of them. So that's pretty cool. But I do remember how this all ended up creating opportunities. So those flex posts are really valuable. What you want to do is try to find like your level of comfort with flex posts. Like I made a satirical flex post that really went wrong. But like Cher and I rented a Tesla for a video that we made a while ago, which I don't think that video ever saw the light of day, Brian. But we made a video where it was like, this is not my Tesla. I rented it to make you think that I make more money than I do, to make you think that you want this car. And I was making like this entire kind of joke around it. And I posted it as one of my profiles and also on ads. And on the ads, you'd have all these people being like, bro, why you get that car just to make this ad, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's the post. That was the purpose. So that one kind of bit me in my ass. So it was pretty funny seeing that. But you got to feel comfortable with how you want to make your flex posts, obviously. Is there any other flex posts, Brian, that you did or anything else you wanted to share outside of those?
No, I'm really weird. I'm just going to be really honest and transparent here and just admit that I am very fearful of judgment sometimes from people who, friends and family when I do that stuff, especially I think in 2020, a year when a lot of people I know personally struggled. And so it's really difficult for me to find that line. Like I had a New Year's post that I wrote and it took me like a couple hours and I deleted it after because I was like,
what?
All right,
can we make a petition for Brian to post that post? We should make a petition.
It's probably lost. I didn't love it because it felt forced. I don't know. So I'm just admitting that there's a line you'll have to draw for yourself where you feel comfortable. I think the easiest thing to do is to celebrate the wins of your clients if you don't want to focus on yourself.
For sure.
But all the results you can create. It doesn't have to be about you, right? Be about the results.
That's also why, Brian, though, I deleted everyone on Facebook that I know or care about. Because, like, I care about those people's opinions, not any of, like, people in the marketing space. I don't give a shit about their opinions. If you like it, that's great.
Like someone who I barely talk to see one of my stories. I'm like, oh, no, like, what are they going to think if I post this thing? Like, that's right. I still go through that. So I think
just
part of that having our team post like these shows and videos for us. And I don't have to think about it. And they just go out there. Even though when these clips don't get the most engagement, it's fine. It's about the positioning, the value proposition, and the perceived value that people want to be attracted to this. Because when we go talk to them and we set appointments and go to them, not just wait for them to come to us, it's going to be a lot easier because we know they already have some sense of who we are.
Love it.
So,
What other posts? What was your next post?
Yeah, let's talk about the most valuable post we're going to, at least my opinion, we'll discuss on today's episode. And that is what's called the two-step post. We've been getting fancier with this lately. In the past, we would just like send them something like that. Here it is. But we're being much more intentional with how we're doing this. So listen up. If you're going to take anything away from this episode, I know we're a little bit already into it, but this is, in my opinion, the most valuable post because one, it will create the most engagement, and two, it will create the most opportunities for you to actually go have a conversation around a pain point you can help someone with, and then move that conversation to a sales call. So what does a two-step post look like? Again, not going to actually share here because there's an audio for the people on the podcast. I will just briefly explain it because they're pretty simple. It's where you're going to tell or ask your audience, your friends, Facebook group, etc., if they want access to a certain resource. And I like to make it really simple for them. Just tell them comment yes below, or comment me below, or comment 7 below if you want access to our blank. And what we used to do is think this has to be for like our big cornerstone content, like a 24-page PDF or like a VSL training we spent like weeks developing, like all this complicated stuff. When in reality, it should just be around pain points you know you can help your customers solve, right? So you should have a list of these things you know they might want, whether that's a simple template or a hack or a strategy or a concept. And the idea is to make a post that asks, hey, who wants access to this? Comment me below. And you'll get a lot of engagement because you're telling them to go comment on that. And what this does now is twofold. One, as you send them access to this resource, there should be a page that has a video explaining or giving them just kind of like 5 to 10 minutes the resource, giving them the value, with 2 to 3 mentions throughout that video that you have time available on your calendar this week to help people who are looking for support on this. Specifically, have a clear call to action and a button, put some proof on that page, send people who want that there. Now, maybe only 5 to 10% of people will actually self-book. This is where we have this invisible list strategy. And I don't know why we call it that, because it's not really invisible. But all of those people now who actually commented on this two-step post are candidates for you to reach back out to and say, hey, what did you think about that resource? What are you currently doing about blank? Now, the secret sauce here is that your resource is around basically around your offer and a pain point you know you can help them solve. Because if you're like, hey, how do you feel about taxes this year, but you're not doing anything about their taxes, like that's not going to lead a conversation naturally. Exactly. But if you are working with realtors and you post like, hey, who wants to see our resource on how to move to exclusive and not shared leads, and you get people commenting on that, reach back out and say, hey, so where do most of your leads currently come from? Do you have to share a lot of the leads you get from platforms like Zillow? So ask open-ended questions around the content you expressed in the two-step post. So my 2 most successful and popular ones were, one, giving away our ISA map, which is essentially an infinitely scalable agency map, all the elements you need in your agency. I took a screenshot of that. Another one was our proven outreach scripts, which has, thousands of people have reached it, hundreds of comments, 250 on this. This is what we actually run ads to and pull people into our group with that little side strategy right there. Maybe we can get into another episode of pulling people into your Facebook group through a lead magnet, through ads, instead of doing a VSL. So food for thought. And then another one was our perfect prospecting system PDF, where it was a 24-page PDF. But again, I don't want you to have to create these massive cornerstone pieces of content all the time. Just think of a simple concept. Create a 5 to 10 minute video. You don't have to make it before you make the post about it. Ask who wants to see it. If you don't get a lot of comments, delete it. If you get more than 10, 20 people who say, yeah, I want to see that, go make a video, have the call to action to book a call with you, stack some proof on that page if you have it, and follow up with the people who comment. That is the most valuable post we have. Alex made one today, actually, just a few hours ago, which has 100+ comments. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk about this a little more.
Perfect. So Brian called it the two-step post. I want to talk about what we used to do it, which was just like a lead magnet post, which is basically who wants my blank, 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 blank. posts. I think the most effective one that we had, in terms of effective being like the most needed, wanted, desired, and most created revenue opportunity, was the pandemic, thriving in the pandemic, like guidebook that we had. In the end of February last year, or beginning of March rather, I did a post of like, who wants my pandemic guidebook to help your business thrive through this, through COVID. We did that. I don't remember how many it was, but it was more than 500 comments. And we ended up making like a small course. I think it was $100. Might have been $197. I can't remember. But I know we made at least $4,000 to $5,000 from it, and then had, I think, like 10 people upsell into POD Elite, including some unbelievable clients that we have now. I'm not going to name names, but a certain amazing Canadian lady, Brian, who's
Nice.
just awesome, been working with us for...
Yeah, and since we're talking about profitable posts, I wanted to add that post about our ISA map, the two-step post, was my most profitable personally from this list. We had 5 people of the 100 who commented on that joined and became a client within the next couple of months. So
Wow,
5% conversion rate on one post.
So yeah, the Thriving in the Pandemic post is one that I've done. I'll talk about that in a second again. I've done, today I did sales objections. I've done before the 5 best prospecting messages. I've done the strategy for LinkedIn. We've done all of them, like so many of them. Some of them do great, some of them don't. The worst I've ever seen would be like 30 comments, in which case there's just not a lot of energy behind that specific thing. But it's the easiest thing to do. Like Brian was talking about the two-step model, we used to not do that. What we used to just do pretty simply is, do you want my blank, blank, blank? Yes. Can I DM you? In the comment, go DM them. Hey, here it is. Let me know what you think, and then follow up and create opportunity. That's like the simplest way. Brian's new way that he's talking about, the two-step model, is a little bit more effective for us for scaling purposes, but it is valuable. I do want to touch on this for a second though, Brian, because we were discussing like how people perceive you and everything. I don't know if I ever told you this, so you're going to be like, what? I don't know if I told you this. I'm not going to name names for the sake of this podcast, but a former client of ours saw the Thriving in the Pandemic post and made an entire blog post about how he thought it was gross that I made that post. He never told me about it. And I think I searched my name on Google one time, like maybe a couple months later, just to see what was coming up. And that article had come up, and I read it, and I was very offended first, because he was questioning my integrity, that I was doing something gross by trying to sell people into this like pandemic guide. But like anyone that knows me and knows my intention, my true sincere intention, right, was to legitimately help agencies that were getting absolutely crushed, and by a byproduct help the end clients who were getting crushed. That entire pandemic guide was like how to help yoga studios and gyms do virtual classes, right? Because you couldn't be in person, or how to help a restaurant go on live and share secret recipes to get more interest, or sell gift cards like preemptively. And he was shitting on me for this post, and I reached out to him, and I shared the doc with him, and I'm like, did you even read it? And he was like, no, I didn't read it. It was just my opinion. And he didn't say anything really bad about me, like I was a bad person or anything, but I thought it was so interesting, and it harkens back to what you're talking about earlier in this podcast. And I talk about this a lot, especially when we're coaching sales and POD. It's like, you just can't control how people perceive you, right? When we're worried about towing the line between, am I coming off confident? Am I coming off arrogant? Am I coming off cocky? Am I coming off sincere? Am I coming off with gratitude? Two people, can look at the same exact video clip, and one guy's like, that dude's such an arrogant prick. And the other guy's like, that's the most sincere person I've ever seen, right? And you just don't have control over it, even if they have no idea what your intention is. And even if your intention is something totally fine, they could take it in another way. So I think one of the things that is valuable to share on here, I think I'm a very transparent person. It's just who I am. It's how I was born and bred. It's just my style, and I prefer to be that way. I think because when I was younger, I used to get caught in a lot of lies, and I'm a good bullshitter, but I don't know how to get myself out of how I bullshitted that. So I don't do that anymore. So I'm just very transparent about everything. And sometimes it bites me in the ass, and other times it doesn't. But what I'm never going to do is be afraid of how someone perceives me, because I don't have control of that perception anyway. So I'm just going to come with my intention of being a good person, a person of integrity, with the sincere desire to help, but most importantly, a sincere desire to ensure that my family and my team and my community is taken care of, because that's how it has to be. And I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So really interesting how we ended up kind of dovetailing into this when we're talking about these types of like lead magnet posts. But I think that's really interesting. What is the next type of post, Brian?
Yeah, the last one that I've got here today, and it's a couple of different ones as we've done these before. And this one's more fun, and I think it's a little more complicated to do for sure. So I wanted to just leave it here at the tail end. We have made satirical, funny videos in the past. So one of our favorites was back in St. Thomas, doing the what things digital nomads say, and like that was probably the best because we were just in all these cool locations and having a lot of fun with it. We've done bad sales advice where we jokingly like role play, and Alex or I play a client who's or a sales agent who's just doing the worst sales things you can do in the world. I did a sarcastic one about like the stupid thing marketing agencies do. Those get a lot of shares, a lot of engagement, and again, it creates, it entertains and educates. I think if you just want to focus on education, you're gonna get lost in the noise. But people want to be entertained. They want something that's going to shock them and stop them in their tracks. And an interesting little hack here. This is for me to say it out loud to ingrain this in my brain, and also for people here on this show, and for Alex, and also further proof that it works because this worked in our videos and we did it unknowingly. But using props. When you have props in your videos, for whatever reason, whether it's a cell phone, like just people's attention is drawn to that. So when you're doing fun, different, unique videos, just consider what kind of strange, unique, eye-catching props. If we're talking marketing lingo, this is a pattern interrupt. You just get someone to like stop in their tracks and go, whoa, what is this weird thing that I'm looking at? Crazy extreme example would be, I saw an ad recently where a guy was in a bathtub full of nacho cheese, eating nachos off of himself, and said something about like, some play on the word nacho. I don't know, want a nacho, how I get good leads, or something just stupid like that.
Is it like no-show nachos?
Yeah, just literally eating nachos off of himself. So that's taking it to an extreme. That's going to get people to stop and look. So just consider how you can have fun and be different in your content. I know it's harder for some people for sure, and I get that. So don't feel like you need to have that answer right away. Just start with something imperfect and go from there.
Please let me just like recollect and just have fun with this for a minute on that bad sales advice video. That was the most fun I've ever had making a video. We had one of our clients, shout out Elston, who has an amazing like radio British voice, playing like the narrator of like what that advice was. My favorite part is Brian, we said, let your prospect decide the price. And Brian's like, I love this. I want to do it. How much does it cost? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to pay? He's like, well, I've got about $4.50 in my wallet, and I've also got a $20 Taco Bell gift card. How does that sound? And Brian didn't plan that with me, so I was dying laughing. It was so funny. It was so great. Another part of that video is Brian telling me, the prospect, like that I have to do it. He's not listening to me saying no. And I'm like, Brian, I don't know if it's a good fit. He's like, awesome, I could take your credit card now. I'm like, well, I just don't, I think we gotta wait. He's like, okay, great, I'm hearing you. We're ready to go. Let's start today. And he just like did it 4 times. Such a fun video. We had a great time doing that. We definitely got to do more. We haven't done as much during COVID, obviously, because of like not being able to be together and everything, which is just a shitty excuse, frankly. But hopefully soon we'll be able to do it. If you haven't seen those videos, definitely got to check it out. Brian, we got to run some ads to the bad sales video.
I think that'd be a good plug now, because we're going to be able to get together here towards the end of April and with all of our Scale 7 clients. So if you're in a place where you need a supportive community, you want a badass tribe of entrepreneurs to help you and have your back, POD is where it's at. You can ask anyone in our community. It doesn't have to, I mean, they will go out of their way to tell you how great it is. I know that for a fact, and I know you will love it too. So if you want to hang out with us in Tampa, Florida, we're going to do this in the next couple of months. So just a little plug there. We're going to do some fun videos. You'll see Alex and I be a ridiculous duo in person. So we're excited.
Just very important to note also, 2 things. One, we don't actually give you bad sales advice. That was just a video. That was just a funny video that we did. And number 2, the perfect segue into my next one, which is statement posts. I like to do kind of like controversial statement posts. Brian's always bitching, I'm just going to say it, about how we're kind of too down the middle, which I get. I mean, we're not like, we're gun-toting Americans. We don't do like those types of posts or ads or anything. We could, but we just don't really do that. Like, we're not going to like smoke marijuana live on Facebook, or we're not going to like stake a claim on our political views. We're going to kind of keep it a little bit down the middle, which is fine. But there's certain things that I'll push the buttons on a bit. And here's two of them that I did. One I already shared with you earlier, where I was like, freelancers are not business owners. That one was like, oh my God, people flipped out. And then I posted it on Clickfunnels group also, which made it even more people freaking out at me. It was great. Honestly, I loved it. They were taking personal offense to my single sentence. Here's two that I did. One perfectly stated by Brian. Find mentors who care more about client success than client acquisition. And this was a subtle jab at all of our competitors. There's some people that I can name on my hand that I know legitimately are good people, really do care about their clients, but they're like the minority, us and like maybe two other people that I can think of. And there's so many other agency coaches out there that are like in the fly by their seat of their pants model, where they've never had a successful company before, and now they're teaching people because they're like good at sales, but don't give a shit about your success. All they care about is making more money. They care more about client acquisition than they do about client success. So I made a post with that like speaking emoji. Find a mentor who cares more about client success than they do client acquisition. And I got a crap load of engagement on that post, which was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And a bunch of people were asking me like, is this a subtle jab at person? And I was like, no, but if you want to be, I'm down. Like, we can do that. If we want to like fight for it, I'm cool with it. So I'll lay this out there, right? I'm happy to go toe to toe anytime with anyone in this agency or space, sharing our knowledge and our results back to back and seeing what we can do to make an impact for the community. I'm happy to do that anytime. It's not an ego thing. It's based on our belief in what we do and how much effort we put into our clients. And I think that's really important. The other one is revenue is a vanity metric and profit is king. And this is another slight jab at the like flexing that we were talking about earlier. Like, a lot of people are like, oh my God, Alex, you did $1 million in POD and it's great. But like, do you know how much profit was in it? Imagine if we got the 2 Comma Club because we made $1 million in revenue, but we profited 100 grand. Who gives a shit about the $1 million in revenue? 90% was expenses. So who cares, right? So a lot of people I think out there, they resonate very strongly with this idea of how much money you're making. Like, very commonly in this space, make 10K a month or hit 50K a month recurring. But those numbers are vanity metrics, because you're never gonna, that's not the amount of money you're taking home, right? You're gonna take home a small percentage of that, probably 2,500, 3,000, maybe 3,500, right? And a certain amount your business will profit, and then the rest is to team and expenses and all that jazz. So what we want to try to focus on, and especially in our business and in our coaching and in our clients' support, is not really focusing on the revenue as a vanity metric, but focusing on how do we get you the financial income that you're looking for through profit, through profitability. Huge shout out to Adam Rundle and his team, Clever Profits team, who's really supported us in learning how to use more effective profitability models. And maybe we'll do an entire training on that, although we'll probably be out of pocket because it's not really our best skill, like teaching numbers. But in general, revenue is going to be a vanity metric. Profit is king. Do not get distracted or do not get sucked in by other people saying how much money they're making per month, because it's probably not a great profit, and you don't have to compare yourself to anyone. Remember, we said this last week, comparison is the thief of joy. Just focus on you, be focused on your growth, your opportunities, and focus on your profit. That is the statement posts. I know I'm giving you kind of offhand here, but is there any statement posts you think you've done, Brian, that were really impactful? Because I do have one more post after statement posts before we wrap up today.
Nah, I'm too vanilla.
Too vanilla. Too down the middle, right?
Too vanilla, and I know that. And it's always a battle of like, even when you are making content, you like might see some of the stuff we put out, like, wow, how they do that. And I'm still have this like perfectionist, like imposter syndrome that I battle too. So I just want you guys to know it happens like at all levels and stages. It's weird to say that out loud, but I just want to be transparent, not bullshit. Like, it's not. And I feel like too the burden of feeling like the need to create content also in my mind creates uninspired content that doesn't work very well. So I think purposefully for us to do this show was that exact reason. So we do it, and then there's actually content being created from it versus us feeling forced to have to write something that we're not inspired to do. So definitely, I love that. Would love to hear from you if you're watching in the YouTube channel or on our Facebook or on Apple Podcasts. Like, what is your kind of like statement post? Like what is your thing that's not down the middle, that's maybe a little bit aggressive on either side of the coin? I'd love to hear. And I'll finish this off with the last post
that has been the most valuable, profitable, and impactful for us. And that's the type of value posts that we do. Now, you might think that value posts are actually the least impactful, and you'd be 100% correct. Because the reality is, the value posts are usually the ones that create the least amount of engagement, because they're the same type of posts that people see all the time, where it's like, okay, I get this idea, and like I look at it and I move on. The reason why I said this for the end is because all of the personal stuff, right? When we posted about our baby being born, that was the biggest post I've ever had on Facebook. I think it was like 600 likes and like 1,000 comments. It was insane, right? Which is understandable. It's like a once in a lifetime, super exciting thing. We had our first child. It's great. But it's all these people coming out of the woodwork, like POD clients for 5 years ago, people on Facebook that I went to high school with that I'm like, why are we still friends on Facebook? Those types of things, right? And the reality is, it makes you realize that even if people are not engaging in your content every single time, there's still the invisible impact, and it matters. People see that stuff consistently over and over. You're top of mind, you stay top of mind, and that really makes a big difference. So I pulled out what I believe is the most impactful and valuable value post I had, and also seemingly had pretty good engagement. And I'll read a little bit of this. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's pretty long, but I'll give you a quick rundown. People love lists. Human beings are like really attracted to lists. I don't know why. There's a psychology element related to it, but we don't have to get into that today. It was my lessons from over 1,000 sales audits. I posted this last April in 2020. I've done an update from 1,400 sales audits. I'm nearing about 2,500 sales audits now. I did almost 1,500 in the last year. But I would love to share an update on this post. But basically, I shared my lessons over 1,000 sales audits, and I did 10 specific lessons. I'll share 3 of them just off the cuff here. But it had 65 likes, 55 comments, and 1 share. Then I also posted it in Clickfunnels group, and I also posted it in, I think, a bunch of other groups as well. And I got clients from it. People coming to me and saying, hey, I saw that thing in your post. This thing is what I'm struggling with. Can you help me? Anything that I talk about when I do sales content or value usually creates opportunities, because it's my best zone of genius. It's where I'm in my element and where I can just kind of do my thing and share the best value I possibly can. And because I hone that skill so much, meaning I'm still doing a lot of sales calls and I also audit a lot of sales calls, it helps me kind of share a lot of value. So I'll share a couple of them that I think are really valuable, just completely off the cuff here. 3 most common objections. Again, this is last year, but they still hold true. 3 most common objections are: let me talk to my partner, I don't have the money, I've been burned before. About 60% offered a quick start bonus, aka waiving the setup fee, but there was no substantial difference in their closing rate to those who were staunch in their offer, meaning they didn't move into a quick start bonus. And then about 40% offered refundable deposits, one of the big things that we coach. Usually $500 or $1,000. Less than 10% of those refundable deposits were refunded. Everyone else ended up moving forward. Hopefully you learned from that and actually get some more refundable deposits, which we shared about in the sales coaching. But this was a great post. People loved it. I definitely have to do an update. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw this post. Like, damn, I got to do an update. We're coming up on a year here in about a month and a half from this post about 10 months ago. It's pretty awesome. So that is the 10 most valuable posts, plus some extra ones. I think we probably did like 12 to 13, but that's okay. The 10 most valuable posts that we've got. Brian, is there anything else that you wanted to share before we hop on out of here for episode number 9? You're muted. What a rookie. Brian's such a rookie. We're episode number 9 and he's muted. Unbelievable.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Ha ha!
Probably should have led with this. But that's okay. I think this is super valuable. A lot of you probably watching are considering, okay, I want to make content. Where do I post it? For sure, other Facebook groups. Now, there's a line to walk to. Something that's too self-promotional, usually going to not go so well, get you banned, kicked out of the group. Focus more on value-based posts, demonstrating, showing value. Usually when you thank the group and or the group's admin, so it's sort of a mini testimonial to them in the beginning of the post, you can get away with a lot more. So thanks to what I learned in this group, we were able to help this client achieve blank result. So that works well if you don't have an audience to start. I would say best place to start would be Facebook, other Facebook groups, and start to add people as Facebook friends in those groups that can become leads. And when you post on your personal profile down the road, you're not just posting into a black hole. I think the most dangerous thing with content is people make it and they put it somewhere where it's never going to get found. Instagram is very difficult to earn back or earn an audience and grow like through follow backs. LinkedIn, people don't spend much time on there. Facebook is 90% of the time, I would say, the best place to go add people as friends, create valuable content, and stay top of mind, because that's where people are spending the majority of their time, especially, I would say, an older generation of people who your clients typically are going to be, because typically younger owners of businesses are more green, not as profitable, don't have as much money to invest. So just consider your audience, where they spend time, and don't just post into a black hole and a black void. So that's all I've got. I'm very excited about the content we put out today. So hope you guys found it valuable as well. As always, drop a comment and or like if you're enjoying this. Subscribe on whatever platform you're viewing this, listening to on. We're all over the place. We're making moves, bringing valuable content. Hope this was helpful to you. Alex, want to bring us home?
Thanks so much for giving us your time. The most valuable asset you got, and you're here listening to us ramble on and hopefully laughing at Brian for muting his mic 9 episodes into our show. Love all of you. Appreciate all of you. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your day or evening or morning. Whenever you're listening to this, we do not know. More amazing content coming your way, we promise. Thanks so much. And as always, we will see you on the next one.
See ya.
That was fun. That was a great